I'm sorry, I'm
Placing
sorry,
of
I'm sorry.
self.
Study. Hello and welcome to the new KLE Debate Youth Cup 2021. Thank you to all the lecturers, students, and supporters for being here today. My name is Ain and I will be your chairperson and timekeeper for this session. Today's session will be educated by Mr. Shafiq Razak and Miss Umi Udina. We are going to start with the second round of the preliminary rounds by reading the motion. The motion for this debate is this House regrets the trend of placing self-destructive antisocial characters as protagonists in media. For example, BoJack Horseman, Rick and Morty, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and Mad Men. The members of the government side representing Unique MFI are Nabila as the Prime Minister, Shabazz as the Deputy Prime Minister, Natasha as the Government Whip, and the reply speech from the government side will be given by Nabila. The members of the opposition side representing Unique Al-Maitak are Anissa as the leader of opposition, Shazlin as the deputy leader of opposition, Fanshu as the opposition whip, and the reply speech from the opposition side will be given by Shazlin. Before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules. Each of the main speeches is 7 minutes long. I repeat, 7 minutes long. The first and last minute of each of these speeches is known as protected time, which means that no points of information or POI may be asked by the opposing bench. The reply speeches are 4 minutes long. I repeat, 4 minutes long and are entirely protected from POIs. As the timekeeper, I will mark the opening and closing protected time with a single bang or clap, once at 1 minute and second time at 6 minutes. I will also indicate that the speaker's time is up with a double bang. If the speaker continues for a further 15 seconds, the indicator will start with a triple bang and thereafter continuously until the speaker stops. The indicator for the reply speech will start single bang at third minutes, double bang on fourth minutes. If the speaker continues for a further 15 seconds, the indicator will start with a triple bang and thereafter continuously until the speaker stops. Could I also politely ask that phones be switched off for the duration for each debate? If you wish to use your phone, please mute your mic and switch off your video to respect the ongoing session. Participants, you will have a 10-minute grace period if you are disconnected. I repeat, 10-minute grace period if you are disconnected. Please continue your speech during that period. We would like to move on to the next speaker if you fail to reconnect after the grace period. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming the first speaker of the debate, the Prime Minister, to the floor to open the debate.
Am I allowed to speak now?
Yes, whenever you are
Um,
ready.
okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, this house rejects the placing of self-destructive protagonists in media. The examples of portrayals that has already been there are such as the shows BoJack Horseman, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Rick and Morty, and Mad Men. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say this: we are what we eat, what we read, and what we watch. And we know that what we watch will subconsciously affect our mind. And first, I would like to define what is a protagonist. Protagonist is a lead character in a story, which is usually the character that the viewer sees themselves in. And some viewers are not being able to, even though they are able to say that this act is wrong or right, they are not able to control their subconscious thought. And a lot of things in the media are things that will be embedded in the audience subconscious thought. And other than that, I will define what is self-destructive behaviors. Self-destructive behaviors can be defined as behaviors that portrays mental illnesses and self-sabotaging, obsessive behaviors, and other immoral behaviors. So I will then define the stakeholders who are affected. Of course, the first one is the audiences, the person who takes in the media that has already been portrayed, and who are able to be to control this is the responsible bodies such as the filmmaker licensing and filtering body, and also the one who is responsible to give this content out there is the content creator. So my argument is, why do we as a government don't support the portrayals of self-destructive behaviors to be the protagonists? We believe that it will normalize a self and promotes the concept that it's okay to live in a very bad behavior and bad thinking patterns. People will think that another thing is when mental illnesses or other behaviors that exist within society. We agree with that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be shown in the protagonist character, because the protagonist character, if the people are not being able to differentiate what is right and what is wrong, they will subconsciously imply the main character's negative behaviors to themselves. Other than that, we know that um, years back when we have Tumblr, when we were playing Tumblr, I think I was 13. When we were playing those kind of platforms, there are a lot of self harm and self destructive posts that have been romanticized. And we can say those are the things that are in the media. Other than the shows that have already been shows at a lot of platforms, those are the things that has already been embedded in the media, and those are things and acts of romanticizing it. We think that being sad is is a new kind of cool, is something that people, of course we want an avenue for these people, but it's not to the point that it is normalized such as that is the only emotion that a person should feel throughout their life. Okay, so that is where it is wrong. We don't want it to be normalized in the society. We want the society to have a better thinking thoughts. And other than this, we know that the suicide cases in all countries in all over the world has been increasing regardless of the age group. And probably you can argue with it, it's not necessarily contributed by the media, but we are aware that a large portion of our time is spent by watching a lot of media. We consume the media, we scroll through our gadgets, we watch Netflix just in the convenience of our phone. So we know how accessible it is to watch a protagonist that portrays self-destructive behaviors in this platform. And other than that, not only it will lead to depression and also romanticizing self mental illnesses. Other than that, my second argument is it will also lead to immoral behaviors. You can say, other than depression, it also portrays vulgar words that normally being said by the main character. And we believe that the main character is the role model of the audiences. We like it or not, we want to say, oh, I don't like the main character, but we know, as my first thought just now is, whatever we watch, whatever we read will somehow be embedded to us subconsciously eventually. So other than that, not only that, I will take an example. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. If you watch it, it's about a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend who doesn't have a self-respect and has an obsessive behavior. And we know that sometimes we can say there are moments in our lives where we're not being able to move, all right? But that is where we draw the boundaries. When we portray this as the main character, people will think, oh, maybe it's okay for me to be obsessive, but that is where the problem comes from. We will lack self-respect and we won't prioritize ourselves in return. So that is very wrong. We don't want people to create these protagonists as their main role models. And other than that, the models that we would like to imply to this is that we will promote a healthy lifestyle in schools and at home, so people will have a better thinking pattern. And why we think this is important, because the media is the shape makers of the future generations and all the people in the community at large. So the outcome of this, if we don't normalize self-destructive behaviors as the behaviors of the protagonist, people will in turn have a more rationality. They won't do obsessive behaviors like being a crazy ex-girlfriend. They will have more self-respect towards themselves. They wouldn't saying their vulgar words just normally. And there's also a sense of respect in the community at large, and also people will work towards more positive thinking patterns and not normalize suicide and not romanticizing those things. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Now, please welcome the first speaker of the opposition, the leader of opposition, to open the case for their side.
Assalamualaikum. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Can you guys hear me?
yes, yes, we can
Yes.
hear
Okay.
you.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to the respected speakers, precise timekeeper, honorable adjudicators, members of the opposite team, and members of the floor. The topic for debate for today's debate is that this house regret the trend of placing self-destructive and antisocial characters as protagonists in media. We from the opposition team agree with the definition given by the Prime Minister. However, we, the opposition team, disagree with the motion. Today, as the leader of opposition, I will be talking to you about um, the goods in. There's always a good in bad, and my deputy leader opposition will talk about her arguments, and I will flip our whip. We rebut and sum up our team case. Before that, I'm going to make a few rebuttals based on speech given by the Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister has tried to tell you that um, the sorry, the immoral behavior will be normalized. People that take these characters as model, as protagonists, will normalize bad behavior in their lifestyle. This is wrong because there are some people that can differentiate between bad and good. Okay. Moving on to my arguments, I will be discussing 3 points with you. My first point is that there's always good in every bad. We agree that if the destructive characters is over glorified to certain metrics, then we need to stop them streaming for children in their early years. But don't forget to check why they're being labeled as self-destructive or antisocial and have this kind of characters. Why do media accepted this kind of behavior nowadays? Because from a perspective, for example, you have a piece of white paper and then you put a black dot in the middle of it. Don't just look at the black dot, instead look at the white area. There's always a good in a bad, because even that person is self-destructive or have a bad behavior, there's always good in that, and there's always a reasons behind everything. Antisocial are focusing on antisocial behavior or self-destructing. There's always a reason why they act like that, why they have that kind of behavior. Okay, for antisocial, they are known for their aggressiveness. Even though they look soft on the outside, they are actually quite outspoken. This aggressiveness is needed in today's society because everyone have the right to voice out their opinion. This sorry, this self-destructive antisocial is labeled because their um, their opinion, their courage to voicing out their opinion are not accepted by the Malaysian culture nowadays, because Malaysia culture is known as soft spoken. You have to be you cannot raise the tone of your voice to the people, but everyone have their rights to voice out their voices. This, we cannot see the bad, only the bad in these characters. There's always good in it. Like the example given, the crazy ex-girlfriend, right? There must be a reason why she did what she did. It's not being called unrespected, but it's her rights to comment out the wrong in it. This is just them, this is just the character in them voicing out their opinions. Others might accept if they have the same, if they have the same opinion as them, but sometimes people do not accept this. They look at it as a bad influence. We have to understand the situation and the difficulty of that character itself, and how we can uh, on how we can take the goods in it, not just simply labeling them for giving a total negative influence. There's always a positive that can be seen from the negative impact itself. Sorry. They are different and idealistic being outspoken. It will be unfair to just label and reject this. In our culture, especially, when people being idealistic, outspoken, and have different way of characteristics, which against the norm, we are easily labeling them as, oh, this guy is rude, these people is rude because they are voicing out their opinion by raising their tone of voice. Some some people that some this character exists because the filmmaker want them to see the good in bad. This is our stand for today. There's always a good in bad. Ladies and gentlemen, I have talked to you about why this character, antisocial self-destructive character, is not always bad. It's not always bring harm to our life. Right. Through this reason, we propose it is clear that we do not agree with the motion. With that, I raise my case. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speaker for the speech and welcome the second speaker of the government, the Deputy Prime Minister, to continue the case for their side.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, sure. So I'll begin my speech right now. So I just want to focus first on a few rebuttals that were presented by the opposition leader of this particular topic. I just wanted to focus on a few things, which is like you never really addressed the whole concept of like exposure leading to causality, because there is a direct correlation with this. We see this evidence because we wouldn't have content that targets a particular character trait and that is designed in a way to ensure that a certain group of people can relate to these people, unless they knew that there was a way to sort of have a cause and effect with this relate, like people would relate to it, which is why they would demand content like this, which is why content creators would create content like this, and it's a cycle that keeps going. And you talked about like how people are smart enough to make decisions about um, being able to tell the difference between right character traits and wrong character traits. But then let me ask you this: why do we have content that is created under supervision? Why do we have why do we have kids that are put under supervision when they create when content is created? Why do we have rating systems like PG-13? We have R-rated content that ensure that 18 plus, like this kind of content is only meant to be consumed by people above the age of 18. It's because it goes back to the first point, right? Like exposure leads to causality. People, especially kids at a young age, are not smart enough to tell the difference, which is why they need to be put under supervision. And third, I wanted to mention was like these kind of people, like the content that is created, it's not necessarily meant to target, and I could see why you come from that point. Like it's not necessarily meant to target uh, like lifestyle patterns. It's meant to target relatability, which is what would ensure repeat viewings, right? I'm gonna watch content because I know that it's relatable to me, and I would like prefer to watch this kind of content, which is why I would consume it, and which is why they would make it. And lastly, you talked about being outspoken. And I don't understand this. Like, outspoken is just being loud. You're just expressing yourself. And we didn't oppose this. Like, outspoken, like, what are you talking about is the real question, right? Because you can be loud about anything, practically. Any dumb bimbo can just go on and make ridiculous claims. That there's just being outspoken, which is not holding information with inside yourself, you know? So those were just a few rebuttals and a few questions that I wondered maybe you can address them later. So like, anyways, I wanted to present the real thing, which was sort of a model solution that we could perhaps target. And it addresses a few of the arguments that my prime minister has presented from the government side. So the first thing I wanted to mention was like, we need to address this real concept of why is this kind of content, like why is there a need for such content in the first place? You know, what's the issue? Because just banning content like this is not going to make any sense. We need to address the root innate nature within ourselves as to why we need to consume content like this in the first place. And once you can address this, or rather eliminate the need to consume content like this, you would realize that we don't necessarily need such, self-destructive content like BoJack Horseman, like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So one of the few points I want to mention was like, at a very young age, because again, we just established how kids are meant to be put under supervision because they need to be, they have the ability to be influenced upon, is to ensure that we need to ensure that healthy lifestyles are instilled amongst these young kids. The earlier the better, in like schools, at home, so that you ensure that these kids are not necessarily afraid to speak about what they really want to talk about without having the fear of being ridiculed upon them, which would create this sort of antisocial behavior, which would create a sense of depression, which would lead to finding you would need a requirement, you would need to find certain people that view this like have this a similar viewpoint, and which is why you would go to watching content about people that have similar issues like you, which is antisocial behavior and being not heard upon and being ridiculed. So ensure that these kids are not put in a situation like this in the first place. You can make sure by like at a very young age, like grade 1, grade 2, ensure that kids don't verbally abuse others when they raise their opinions. And if someone has made a controversial comment, maybe address them carefully. There's no point of necessarily hammering them down. And so the result is that these kids, when they grow up, they don't necessarily feel the issue that their viewpoints aren't being heard. And when they feel like, okay, their arguments are not necessarily going to be put out of place, you feel like, okay, you know what, I feel like I've been heard upon, and if the whole consensus is that I'm wrong, so be it. You won't feel like you've been violated and your rights of being heard has not necessarily been uh, you know valued. And the second thing I want to talk about is like why design shows that promote protagonists like this in the first place. Why not design shows that and it's not just shows, it's any form of media, which is movies, stories, video games, that promote healthy protagonists, like promote protagonists with good moral characters, like bravery, like selflessness, like having the ability to tell right and wrong, and being just amongst people. And you can see the reason behind it is because, like, the issue with this is that you will see, like, most of the stories that we see, especially with the antisocial behavior, is that these stories are very well structured. So when you see a person with a negative and a self-destructive character trait all of a sudden come out winning on top, you feel like, okay, you know what, I guess if I adopt these kind of personalities, it's going to work for me in real life like that. And we've clearly established that, like, real life and movies are not necessarily going to be the same. They're not necessarily going to relate perfectly together. So this is an issue. And like, this is why we see, like, shows are targeting the relatability factor of these characters rather than like the character traits itself. So you would see, like, um such psychological traits are much more easier to relate to, which is why, like, characters like, for example, Spider-Man are much more relatable to people versus a character like Punisher, who has like a very questionable moral code, you know so it's this kind of innate nature. And like, the way you can do this to ensure that healthy content is created is to ensure that you do take therapeutic research from psychological studies and cross-reference it with the character traits that you are of the protagonist characters that you're creating, so you ensure that these characters fall along well. And that's pretty much it for me right now.
I would like to thank the speaker for their remarks and welcome the second speaker of the opposition, the deputy leader of opposition, to continue the debate for their side.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. I shall begin my speech in three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum in a very pleasantly a bit too wise panels of educators, accurate timekeepers, witty opponents, comrades, and last but not least, members of the House. The topic for today is this House regret the trend of placing self-destructive or antisocial characters as protagonists in media. From our side, we disagree to whatever comes from their side. So, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be doing three things. Firstly, I will rebut the point that have been given by the proposition side. Secondly, I will represent my argumentations. And third, which last but not least, I will summarize my speech. Firstly, they actually fail to understand the antisocial behavior is caused by distractions. There are actually reasons why the antisocial behavior exists. Let's put this way, they could be a struggle with self-development and health issues. So yes, this shown that they shouldn't be rejected, but they should be given a treatment for it. And again, we disagree they've been punished and labeled as what people sees. Secondly, they fail to understand what we said, what we said that been outspoken in terms of voicing out their opinion, but people not accepting it. So this might be one of the reasons why antisocial behavior exists, because they couldn't voicing out their opinions about. Ladies and gentlemen, moving to my arguments, which I will give two main points for today. which each shows how this antisocial should be helped and not rejected. Hmm. So, firstly, ladies and gentlemen, why the media accept? Alright, you might think that an incident is small or unimportant to start with, but antisocial behavior can go on for a very long time, and it could be very serious. Not all antisocial behavior is classed as a crime, but a lot is. Or maybe it could be a crime. But they can still receive help, even if the police are not involved. But nothing will change if you don't take an action, right? So you may not know how to do this, but there's always a chance for you to give informations and support them to make a better change. In that matter, to propose this, some of the help that we could done is actually letting them to actually express themselves, or maybe gives opinions towards things and do what they love, but still need under supervision. Next, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in privilege and right that people could get. So, what's the difference of giving them that? House cancelling could actually be a good thing. People with antisocial personality disorder are unlikely to believe they need help. However, they may seek help from their primary care provider because of other symptoms, such as maybe gone for depressions, anxiety, angry outbursts, out for treatment of substance misuse, and more. So you see, the people with antisocial personality disorder may not provide an accurate account of signs or maybe symptoms. But the key factors in diagnosis is that how affected person relates to others. With permissions, family, friends may be able to provide helpful informations. Again, you see, we should have been given people a chance for them to actually express what they like, even if it takes a protagonist character. So, if that actually could help them, why not? Does this sound insane? Helping people? So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I strongly disagree today and proudly to propose. Thank you.
POI.
Yes.
Are you accepting POIs?
Oh, sorry, I've end my speech.
Is it too
All right,
is it
now,
too late now, or can I talk about the POI?
Um,
Antisocial
has
behavior that
any
comes
you
from.
can.
Okay, never mind.
all right, now let us welcome the government whip to summarize the debate for the government side.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay. So I will start my argument. Wait, let me take a breath first. Okay, 3, 2, 1, start. Thanks for the Deputy Minister for reminding us that the expression of oneself is in voicing out opinion, antisocial behavior exists. I understand this, but I'm gonna let it sit first. I'm gonna talk about my argument. Okay, first of all, our brain is hardwired to recall negative experience more than positive one. This we remember instance when we committed mistake more than those we did, right? So my point is, when we have to beware, I gonna replace my first speaker, my prime minister speak. We have to beware what we consume into our brain and concentrate on preconceived thought that we can improve better than all film or protagonists portray. Why we wanted to make it as our learning curve into like outshine our characteristic when we already have one. And with this, I wanted to say, to what extent are our behavior, feeling, and thought innate, and how are we all learn from this? For centuries, philosophers and psychologists have wondered whether human behavior is due to genetic or environmental factor. There still remain be no one answer, as evidence is continuously being found on both sides. All aspects of person in their intelligence, perception, personality, aggregation level, and even the cause of mental illness or anxiety disorder can be subjected to the nature or nurture debates. The debates of this, we can be say that the most enduring debates within psychological things, because we making like the protagonist as our exemplary um, models. So due to the fault with this model, another two model were developed: the behavior and the phenomenological model. The behavior stance take a different view, as we do not view it as being down to biological factor or unconscious conflict, but learned behavior. If we learn how to act through the interaction with others, so if someone else was to act abnormally, then this theory would suggest that we would learn that behavior from them. What I'm trying to say is, whenever something is doing a good thing, somebody gonna reflect, gonna take the example to a demeaning way. You understand? So as we learn how to act appropriately to society's norm, others, the one that leads with the mental illness, may learn dysfunctional behavior in the same way. This theory stem the basis for the cognitive behavioral model. We believe that everyone has the ability to reach their potential, their full potential, and self-actualize. It is when someone self-actualizes, roads is blocked, that abnormal and mental illness may occur. So the individual will begin to distort their view or the world, and their reality will become dysfunctional. The higher the level of distort reality and the lower the level of the individual ability to connect with their own feeling are more serious than the normal individual. Believe me, I am not a psychologist, but it is rather something that we, as a government side, cannot condone the action or romanticizing what protagonists made. Why we must only consume to on one thing when we can lead a healthy lifestyle or redirect our motivation? There's a lot of different aspects in life that one may want to improvise or improve, but the bottom line is the same. We want it to be better, and it's better way to get to our goal and find it is better for we to get our goals or find similarity in protagonist character portraying. You know, right, when protagonists portraying their character in some sort of movie film or something, series, Korean drama or something, they actually create what we wanted, what we doesn't justify in our life probably. So that's my assumption. But of course, when we are watching them, some goods may happen if the protagonist is portraying good things. What if the other way happen? What if we loving the how to say, let's say Emma Stone. We love Emma Stone. So whatever he did, he killed someone, she killed someone, she being a psychopathic or something that very bad. So do we want to condone the same thing? There's a lot of different aspect, you see, on not focusing only on protagonist themes. So to find people who embody this trait and characteristics that we want someone, we want, let's just say we want something as to be our role model. We need to find that character in real life. We need to find a real human being model, not something created based on imagination or our society expectation. So for me, in my conclusion, when we are supporting character of our own life, and you let others be protagonists, you will look back and see that there is nothing left. But when we take ownership and be grateful in our skin and lead with giving heart, then you are the protagonist of your own life. You don't have to make someone else to be your role model. Yes, probably role model can be justified, but of course, you yourself need to have your own ownership. When you know your ownership, your feet will be grounded. We need to acknowledge we are responsible for our life. The choice we lead life is toward goal. Your story is not told by the thoughts, judgment, film, or, or some blockbuster movies, or even comment by someone else. So that's and for my speech. And I have a little bit comment for the deputy minister. When she said that when we try to restrict the content, we are trying to like limiting the voicing our opinion. Antisocial behavior exists, which I oppose this argument. One can determine clear and present danger or create awareness. So when you so I will not go with this because limiting content or bad protagonists would not go with present or any threat. Silencing can cause ripple effect to our community, but freedom of speech are not be brought into the table. So why not we focusing into the real matter of this? So that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Government Whip. Please welcome the Opposition Whip to sum up for the opposition team.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Alright, so I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, Assalamualaikum and a very good day to the members of the floor and to everyone here. Thank you, Chairperson, the members of the government, and my friend at the opposition side. Members of the floor, for today's debate, the motion is the House reject the trend of placing self-destructive or antisocial character as a protagonist in media. Before I move on to my job scope as a whip for the opposition side, I will explain to the members of the floor what we will do for today. First thing first, I will rebut all the points that have been given by the government side, and secondly, I will stand with the opposition. And based on their point that have been given by my own teammate. First of all, I'll rebut about the Deputy Prime Minister say. As the Deputy Prime Minister only mentioned about at very young age need to have a healthy life. This is let me tell you, this is because of what we do in our life. We have a target, what we want to achieve. We have for it for what we want to do. Same goes to the media team, to a publisher or something. They have their own target audience. Who can watch this? Who couldn't watch this? This is the reason why some of it been filtered by certain age. For example, the house, we watch a movie or drama or series, most of them have been put the parental guide, which is of this movie can only watch by 12 years old and at the certain age. So about everything they want to publish, they have filter. They already think about what they want to filter about it. Just because of that, we just not want to say that cannot publish it. Is it? Based on what the movie series or drama point out in many side and aspect. But PM and DPM just focus on just a side for the children. But how about an adult? How about a teenager? And how about others? Secondly, about what the Prime Minister say that it's okay to have a bad behavior when we need to show them. You know what? Is it because of to let everyone know this kind of attitude will be have is it okay to just like okay I'm the kind person of the attitude, it's not okay at all in this kind of thing. Just let people express themselves. We need to normalize this kind of thing because this is certain of people still have in this kind of world. This doesn't exist yet, this kind of attitude, because when we see this kind of people, we can be aware when we see what show at the movie. Oh, like this kind of attitude, we should be aware in the real life. Okay, because we can make it as example to us, because of we don't see, because of we don't see, we might be the next person that didn't aware about this kind of thing. We should see in a both aspect, positive and negative. Again, I repeat, we need to be aware in what we say. And secondly, I will start with everything my leader opposition and deputy leader opposition say. First, this she say that there is good in the bad. Yes, I agree with her point. I agree with her point. For example, can you please try put yourself in other people's situation? Or we can say like try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. We need to know what they feel, what's the reason of why they be kind of this kind of attitude, why they have a self-depression, anxiety, and more of it. We need to know why. We cannot just labeling them as antisocial person because
POI.
no, thank you. Because of the issue that they having, so we just labeling them that kind of person. No, the person don't want everyone to know about what's their problem, what they're having. So sometimes they're exposing like beyond their expectation. So we have to stop this kind of thing of mentality that labeling people. For example, we are in Malaysia, we have a manners that we have to be polite and everything. If we voice out our opinion, will be judged. So until when we need the things to be normalized? So we need that person just being like, I cannot voice out my thing because people will blame me, issue me or something. Is it good? This is not good thing. Because of what?
No POI.
No, thank you. No POI for now. When in our mentality, if someone is being idealistic, outspoken, and have different from the others, which against the norm, so we are easily labeling them. I repeat, we should stop this kind of mentality and start to accept others people and respect them like the way they are. And secondly, about my dear party leader opposition say that this is human right. Yes, to let them express themselves, yeah. And this is because of the human right. Can we guide them? We can guide them. We can show them the right way. This is not good to people to control
POI.
themselves. No, thank you.
POI.
Not show the control. It can be totally not fair at all if we didn't let them expose their point or their self. So where's the humanity inside of us? As a human, so we should not labeling them as a giving negative remark instead of need to look at the positive side. As we also say about the perception of negativity that our lead have said to us, which is the government failed to see the actual discussion of this debate. As the opposition side, we still believe, despite of antisocial and disrupting, there is room for positively that make them being accepted. So we totally reject the aspect of negativity. We could never see the truth or underlay of the reality. Historical has taught us that from antisocial destructive character can be changed and create a better life and human capital, where we tend to further improve and keep our self improve. Summarize the members of the floor, the government side want you to know that we want the members of the floor to think twice about this issue and think wisely. The government side didn't explain and didn't mention about in every kind of aspect. They should only mention on the trial. But how about others? They didn't think about others. Last, before I end my speech, the most important thing to remember in the debate, the motion is we need to stop labeling people and start to have something new mentality. Again, I repeat, we need to understand the situation and their difficulty are not just simply labeling them. This is not fair for just labeling and rejected them. So lastly, we need to stop and this kind of mentality and stop normalizing this kind of thing. By now, I rest my case. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speakers for all their speeches. Now, let's give the government and opposition sides 5 minutes to prepare for the reply speech. I repeat, 5 minutes to prepare for the reply speech. Please be aware that the reply speech will be for 4 minutes. I repeat, 4 minutes, and no POI is allowed. Let us welcome the representative from the opposition side for the reply speech.
Can the house actually approve because our speaker is at the backstage?
Hello. I'm so sorry. There's a problem with my connection. May I start now? Hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Shazlin from opposition side. Am I correct?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. I shall begin my speech in three, two, one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we may be losing, but we can make a clear explanations on how we could actually help the antisocials, protagonists in the media, and we will be given the chances for them to express. But again, everything is under supervision. So, from our side, we strongly disagree on whatever wrong by their side. From the opposition side, we can clearly understand that the parents could help them. So why regret? Why saying them show most harmful? Instead, letting them to show feelings, and not every bad behavior can cause us harmful. There always a reason why this happened. Ladies and gentlemen, this state about healthy life. Instead of seeing how the healthy life could actually help us, why can we accept the fact that this must exist? It could help them to understand this, and that actually happened and could happen. So again, everything here they must be supervised. Like you said, parent could prevent them from behaving bad, and maybe for the teenagers that could actually be aware of expressions. So next, the government also stated that bad behavior should not be normalized. But let's put your shoes in that character. Alright? It's not like there's no good and bad. We should not be labeling them as giving negative remarks. Instead, need to look at the positive side. Give them a chance to prove themselves. Right? So moving on, ladies and gentlemen, let's make this even clearer. Okay? Imagine you're the evil characters exist, okay, that could actually be our role model, because we can actually set ourselves not to be like them, right? So people tends to follow people's behavior, right? And then yes, those evil characters can be our awareness not to be like that. So imagine if only good behavior of a characters are followed, what about the bad character? Wouldn't be people wonder what will happen if the bad person do, and I bet they will tend to make their own experiments, and that can put them in danger. They will put themselves as the bad character instead. But with the exist of these antisocial characters, it gives us a reminder not to be like that. Instead, we can take the good in it. Do not take the bad side in it, right? You can differentiate everything. So as for the opposition side, we still believe, despite of the antisocial disruptive, there is a room for positivity that made them being accepted in the media. For the negative aspect should be have seen as an aspect that can be turned to positive. It can be as a medium for us to further improve and create a better perceptions. If we totally reject the aspect of negativity, we could never see the truth underlying aspect of the reality. For that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you for the speech. Now, let us welcome the last speaker for today's debate to give the reply speech for the government side.
Okay, I'm ready, inshallah.
Do you want to take a little break for a while?
No, I'm ready.
You're
I,
ready.
I
Okay.
thought
All
it.
right.
Okay, Bismillah. Have you start? Do I count 3 to 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to point out the how the opposition has been going off tangent from the first speaker. We are specifically talking about the portrayals of self-destructive behaviors in media, but they redivert the topic about therapies and how it is relatable in the society, which is for me has run and stray away from the motion itself. If you want to defend your case, you should have been talking about how it should be portrayed in the media, not about parental guidance, not about therapist, how is it relatable in the society. Of course, I will point out first from the first speaker, she said there is no exhibition. You said there is always a good and bad in everything. Of course, I agree to that, and we all agree to that. But that statement alone is very inconclusive. What do you mean by if there is a portrayals of self-destructive behaviors and there's a good and bad in it? So what is the conclusion from that? And the opposition fails to show what is the exhibition of self-destructive protagonists in shows. They're just rambling on about how it affects psychological problems. They don't talk about what is the model that they want to how do they want to control the portrayals of self-destructive behaviors of protagonists in shows. They don't provide the right model, like how we provided our models. We will filter it, and then another thing is they went against their own motion by saying that they will do a regulation that works in our favor, because my deputy prime minister already said that we will introduce regulations and filtrations of film before it is being released. So thank you for agreeing with us, I guess. And then after that, you say about voices can be heard. That is why it is important to have a self-destructive protagonist. But is the only way for your voices to be heard is to show it negatively? Is it necessary for us to watch shows that will further instill those behaviors instead of seeking the right avenues, such as asking from the guidance of parents? We can ask from therapists. We don't need to watch shows that will further instill those negative behaviors in ourselves. If we know that we are in a state of destruction, we should seek for the right avenue. And we know how watching this kind of media will, even though you want to say that we are able to differentiate the good and the bad. I understand, but like I said before, we are what we read, we are what we eat, we are what we watch. We eventually will embed those negative values in ourselves. So that is where the problem is. And we are talking about most of it is how it is not wrong for a person to show a negative behavior in the society. It's not wrong. And the second or third speaker talk about how is it not a legal or a black and white mistake in the society. I understand, of course, but how is it relatable to our arguments? Because the opposition kept going like the stakeholders or the therapists or the parents, when we are specifically talking about the media and the policymakers that are able to control what is being introduced in the media. So that is where they are a bit of tangent from the start. and and they kept saying about how it's relatable, we can differentiate good and the bad, and we are supposed to be more understanding. When we watch, okay, when we talk about understanding, okay, the first speaker talk about we need to understand where they're coming from. When we now watch Netflix, do you watch it in an active analytical mode, or do you normally watch it in a passive and relaxed way? I think it is the latter, right? We don't watch it to analyze. We don't watch a show to specifically analyze it. Probably some people do it, but most of us do it for the purpose of relaxation. So we will somehow subconsciously, in the end, accept and also embedded those negative behaviors in ourselves. So when you talk about you even say about, oh, there's always a reason. I understand there's always a reason, but as an audience, do we always need to understand what is the reason behind the show? We watch shows for entertainment, we watch shows for leisure experiences. We don't watch shows to analyze and understand them necessarily. Okay, so with that, I would like to oppose all the things that have been said by the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you for the reply speech. With that, the debate for this round has ended. Let us give the adjudicators some time to discuss this round result. The adjudicators may move to their respective rooms. I ask the participants to please remain in this room.
Hello, everyone. Are you guys good?
Yes,
It's doing good
maybe
here.
for the yeah.
All right. It seems a bit quiet here. Maybe you guys can open your cameras and try to talk with each other. I mean, like, the session has
Oh,
already ended since we'll
okay.
be having a break after this. So, yeah. Hi,
Hello.
Hi everyone.
Shabazz.
Hi. How are you?
How about the others? Shafiq or Nabila,
I'm
Razmi,
Nabila. I'm here.
Fanshu. Great. You guys are good? How was the debate? Was it fun?
Hi.
It was pretty fun, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think about it? What did you think about
I
emotion? What did you think about it?
honestly, I think it's heavily one-sided. To be honest.
Heavily one-sided. All right.
It's far better than the
Hi,
previous
Fan.
one, I'd say that.
Hi, Fan. Hi,
Mm.
Fan.
Hi. Hello.
Are you good?
But yeah, we'll be having interesting motions after this. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think so. Since like motions are different, we'll start off slowly with the easy one, perhaps. So maybe it'll go a
Yeah.
bit harder after this. Who knows?
You
Who
want?
knows?
Nah.
Sorry.
So I mean, like, get ready for it. But yeah, I think in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime, also enjoy it as well.
All right. Thank you, Irfan.
Welcome. Like,
Okay,
how's
Ifan,
the
can I
debate? Like,
proceed?
oh yeah, is this the educator?
No, no, no. I'm the chairperson.
Oh, Chapson. Oh yeah, yeah. Great name.
Mhm.
Okay, Ifan, thank you. Participants, the adjudicators are now ready. Adjudicators, you may proceed with the verdict. Thank you.
All right. Hey. So, hi guys. My name is Shafiq Raza. I'm the chair for the round. So here's how my OA is gonna go. First, I'm gonna give you guys some general comments about the debate and how I think that it should be able to be progressed, a lot better, and what are the things that you guys can probably improve for the upcoming rounds. And then I'm gonna give you guys some justification. I'm gonna give you guys the verdict. Sorry, and then some justification to that verdict. Okay. So let's start with general comments first. So generally, I think this is an average debate. It could be an above average debate based on the arguments that were presented by speakers. However, I think there was something that's lacking that didn't allow this debate to like transcend into becoming a above average debate. Mainly a few things. Now, number one, I think firstly the characterization when it comes to the type of shows that we are talking about is kind of lacking in terms of both teams, because I think you guys mentioned about how this is like these shows are probably mostly on Netflix, for instance. Like you just use the motion, which is how this is a trend of like a person being self-destructive and or being antisocial. But like I feel like there needs to be. Hello, is everything okay?
We
Yeah,
can hear.
okay. All right, cool. So I think like there needs to be some explanation to tell me like what are the specific characteristics of this show. Like for instance, if you're talking about BoJack Horseman's, right? Like, what is the specific characteristic of the show? Like maybe the show analyzes a lot when it comes to depression, for instance, or like how an individual feel when it comes to being at the end of their life, considering the fact that they have nothing left to lose, they lost their jobs, like you're suffering from like a midlife crisis, for instance. Those are probably characteristics that you can explain to me a lot more in terms of the debate on both sides, because I think when you guys are arguing about how the show is disruptive or the show allows for more trauma to happen, or you tell me that, oh, the show is good because it's it's representative of the people that are suffering from these problems, it's like an explanation to like self-expression, for instance. I think you needed to explain to me how those the characteristics first before you jump into those arguments, because as a judge I need to be the most like average reasonable person in the room. That means I'm not allowed to give my own specific knowledge on the shows, even though I know what the shows look like. But you still needed to have some characteristics to explain to me how the shows look like, because like I can't assert myself in the debate. So it's your job as debaters to like tell me the characteristics. I think it would have made the debate a lot more clearer, and a lot more better. So maybe in the next round, don't skip out on the characteristics. Probably spend some time to explain what are the characteristics of the motion that is important to the debate that you think the educators need to know. That's probably like the most of it. because I think everything else seems fine. Like the way you guys argue is fine. I think the engagement is can be somewhat better, but like it's still there, and I appreciate that the engagement is there. Right. Um, so now to the verdict. So I gave the win to government, and I used two metrics to decide how I would give the win to the government. First metric is the impacts of the show themselves. Given the fact that there are lack of like analysis, it's kind of hard for me to like credit certain arguments. So I had to take some time to dissect and analyze each and everyone's argument. And then second is just the metric of who helps the ones who are suffering better and in which world they are better off. So let's go to the first metric, right, which is the impacts of the show. In government, you talked to me about how the show gives negative impact. Number one, mainly saying that it's going to affect the thinking of the individuals. That means individuals and they watch shows like BoJack Horseman, for instance, is going to affect the way that they think as an individual. Like healthy thinking is probably going to be affected. Second, you guys mentioned to me about how this is going to be like a reminder of their suffering. When you watch these shows, it's going to trigger some memories that are probably going to be like disturbing, or probably going to trigger an attack to these individuals regardless of age, etc. On opposition, you talked to me about how number one, these shows are like a relatability factor. Like means individuals feel relatable to these shows. That's why these shows are good, and that's why we don't regret it. Second, you talked to me about how it's the rights for these people to be able to express themselves. So you talked to me about how when they know or understand that they have a right to be able to express themselves, this is where they can get the most benefit, which is them telling the world why is it that you shouldn't be like looking down on people who are suffering, or probably like explaining to the world why is it that they're suffering from these problems in the first place. I think that's the extent of what you asserted to me. So the reason why Gulf wants the first impact or the first clash is because I think number one, when it comes to explaining to me the harms of like the shows, like the way that it affects your thinking, like the way it reminds you of your past sufferings, I think Gulf managed to explain to me a little bit more when it comes to what are the impacts to these things, right? Like what do they look like, and how is it that it's relatable to a lot of individuals, because these shows specifically target those features. Like they shows specifically target the way that you think or the way that you feel as an individual. That's why when people who are suffering from these problems watches these shows, they're probably going to feel more relatable, and that's a harm that you don't want you to have, because what they want inside of government is that they want you to be able to promote healthy thinking so that you have less people suffering from depression, for instance. And I think they said that even if you don't have these problems and you are a normal person and you watch these shows, it's still gonna affect the way that you like the way that you're thinking. Like it's gonna affect healthy thinking in these individuals. You're probably gonna have like a normalization of this culture, and that's what they don't want in government. And I think they explain it successfully in each and every one of the speakers. In opposition, however, I think when it comes to telling me about relatability and how is the right for them to be able to express, I fail to understand why is it that this is important, considering the fact that number one, I think because the lack of characteristics like affected the way that this argument is supposed to be presented to me. I don't really understand how is it that you're able to manifest a benefit from just having the ability to express yourself, considering the fact that these people, although it's true that they need to have more representation in media, for instance, I'm not sure how is it that it's going to be beneficial for them, because I think the way that you analyze the argument didn't explain to me to that end. You just tell me that, oh, it's good, they get representation, they get right relatability with the media, and that's good. So you didn't explain to me the extent of feeling relatable to the media. So probably what you could have done more is just to tell me about how when you're able to relate yourself to the media, that means you have more people to be aware of the harms of suffering from one of these issues. Probably you can say things like, even if someone doesn't relate to it, at least they can watch the shows and understand how does someone who's suffering from these issues look like, because that's how representation works. It's a way for you to be able to represent like undermine groups of society, and then explain why is it that you shouldn't like be prejudiced against them, etc., etc. I think this is probably things that you could have mentioned to strengthen this argument a lot more. That's probably like one of the few examples that you could have done, or taken the argument a better analysis or to better angle. That way it could have win you like the clash, because the argument is already well explained itself and well analyzed. That's the first clash. So the second clash on who helps the ones that are suffering more. In government, they talk to me about how the way that they help these individuals is by, number one, lessening the amount of the shows, lessening the amount of these type of shows on media. That means having less representation of this kind of people on media, because it's going to be self-harming, it's going to be disruptive in nature, etc., etc. And then they talk to me that even if you want to include this kind of people, what you should do isn't just to like portray them at their worst, you should portray them at their best. That means having some form of analysis on how these people would likely to behave, or what are the things that can help individuals like this, like the psychological studies, etc., etc., and how you incorporate that into shows. I think those are the things that they mention inside of government. In opposition, what you mentioned to me about how you help these individuals, you say that, number one, you wouldn't reject this kind of people. That means you will allow them to get help. That means you give them the rights for them to be able to express themselves. That means they're now free to express themselves, so they don't have to worry about any forms of backlash or any forms of like antagonistic behaviors towards them. And then second, you talk to me about how we're gonna guide them to therapy. That means you promote the idea of self-improvement through these shows. That's why you're gonna say that these shows are probably gonna do those things for them, like guide them to therapy or guide them to become a better person. So again, because of the lack of characteristics, I'm not sure how true this is going to be, like, because considering the fact that like some shows actually don't have any forms of like positive message that tells you that you probably should go to therapy. Because I think shows like again Bojack Horseman probably just shows like what is a shell of a man or a shell of a person after they've gone through a lot of this um you know like painful nature or painful route that they have took, like the nature of being depressed in itself. I think those are the types of like characteristics that are probably in the show themselves. So if the characterization was different, it probably would help me to like analyze it a little bit better, or like, at least credit the argument. But because the lack of analysis, and I think the most analysis I got is just probably from Gov, which is the shows are bad themselves. I think that's why the second clash also goes to government, considering the fact that they talk to me about how they get better shows on their side when you have analysis on how you can make it better, for instance, or how you can change the way that these shows are going to be portrayed in media, for instance, versus you telling me that you're going to guide them to therapy. Because there's lack of analysis to explain to me how is it that the end goal can be achieved, which is them getting therapy or them getting to like improve themselves. I can't give you the win on this clash as well, considering the fact that if I do that, that means I'll be stepping into the debate, and that's not my role as judge to do, which is to step into the debate. So that's why um government takes the second clash as well, and that's why they win the debate entirely. Because I think on both clashes they were able to prove to me sufficiently on why is it that the shows are going to be harmful and why they regret it in nature, versus in opposition you're telling me that, well, these shows are good, but like not going to the extent of why is it good and how do you get your benefits at the end of the day, like you didn't link it back. So yeah, that's my comments on why I think golf wins the debate. Do you guys have any questions for me you want to ask, like any questions at all, like how do you improve your speeches, etc., etc.? Do you guys have any other questions?
Yeah, that was the question I was going to ask. Like, can you tell us how we could improve our speeches?
All right, so I think when it comes to analyzing speeches, you gotta think firstly, what is this speech trying to prove? I think that's the first and most important thing when it comes to arguments, which is number one, why am I saying this? I think that's the first thing that you have to analyze, which is why am I saying this and why is it important? And once you determine why is it important, you gotta explain to me like you gotta know how to like analyze a bit further of the arguments that you're gonna present. That means number one, probably explain to me what's the background of the argument. Like for instance, if you're gonna tell me that the show is good, for instance, right? Like you tell me that relatability factor is an important thing that needs to be discussed in the debate. So first you tell me that why is it that the shows are relatable to in this individual. So you say there's a background of like like parallel behaviors of how the show is and how people in real life would act. And then you tell me that you know this is how they feel relatable. And then the second analysis is just to explain the reason why relatability is important is because of, because when people feel relatable, that means they understand that they are being represented. That means they don't, they have their voices being projected. That means now people in society will see them a lot more. That means you have more representation and more visualization that this community exists. And then when you have all this representation and all this like visualization, what do you do with it? Like, how do you get your benefits to materialize? This is where you come in with with the analysis that says, because now you are being represented and because now you are being focused, this is how we get normal people to be able to mobilize to help people like this. That means, when you watch these shows and then you're reminded that your friend have the similar characteristics to the person in the show or the protagonist in the show, this is where you trigger like awareness in normal people, like people who probably aren't suffering from these issues. So when you are able to trigger that, like that realization, that's where you get your benefits of, people being able to be sent to therapy, because now you have people around them being aware that this is a problem that they need to solve, or else, something's bad gonna happen. I think that's how you further analyze your arguments, just to explain how does it look like and how you get your benefits, or you link it back to whatever you were saying when it comes to relatability and how you get that angle. I think that's how you analyze a lot more in your arguments. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Do you guys have any more questions? Going once, twice. Okay, I assume you guys have no more questions left to be asked. So if that's the case, then that's the end of my oral education. Thanks, guys, for the debate. I think the debate was very good. Good luck in the next round.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Shafiq. With that verdict, the motion, the House regret the trend of placing self-destructive antisocial characters as protagonists in media, for example, BoJack Horseman, Rick and Morty, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and Mad Mad, is passed. Thank you to the educators. Now, the participants may move to the main room for further instruction regarding next round. Thank you everyone for joining the session.
Thank you.
Thank you. For your information, we have a break after this. So you will be in Zoom for roll call at 2:25, 2:55. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Congrats.